I mentioned this before, is that, people are, everyone's different, so, I mean, I know that there's going to be a lot of talk about, the autism side of vaccines, because there's a lot of people who are invested in that and feel very passionate that there's some type of correlation. But I mean, we've seen evidence, and we've heard some other reporting that there's nothing to support that. And even from one parent who, who was going through that, and she was, with her doing her own research and with her doctors. And,
yeah, that's right. We were watching the John Oliver show,
Yeah.
and they showed a report about a woman that said we were confused because we were so much information, and we just wanted to do our own research, and then they found
nothing. It was what did they say, 5 years or something like that? I don't remember. Yeah. So they researched it and found no correlation.
And they pulled out all of these reports that all said no correlation.
Yeah.
And it all came from a study from somebody named Andrew Wakefield, who was a doctor. I mean, after the fact, when the other doctors kind of ripped apart his experiment or study or whatever you'd like to call it, it was all based on 12 kids, which doesn't seem like enough to figure out anything.
Yeah.
And that he was unethical about several of the steps. The issue with that is that he's not only been proven wrong, he's also had his title taken away from him, so he's no longer a doctor. But that hasn't stopped him. He still talks about the dangers of vaccines, even though none of it is supported by anything that he's been saying. But the issue is that then people still believe it and they spread it around, and that is so dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in the same episode we were watching, they were talking about, what was it? It was in France, right? And it was like in 2007, there was 43 cases of measles in all of France. And then, some vaccine hesitancy or anti-vaccine information was spread around. And then in 2011, there was a girl that went on vacation, and then she came home and she went to school, and her and some of her friends got sick, and it spread around. And then by 2011, or you know what, I said in 2011 it was this girl, but I don't know when it happened.
I think it was 2007 when it first started.
Well, no, 2007 is when they only had 43.
Oh, okay.
But by 2011, there was 15,000 people in France that had measles.
Yeah, that's craziness.
And the measles is super, super
Contagious.
Contagious.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm
you're
like,
right.
what's that word? What did they say? If you're not vaccinated and you come in contact with somebody with the measles, you have like a 95% chance of catching the measles.
Yeah.
And it can make you blind and could kill you. And
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah. And it spread so quick, it feels like. I mean, that was just a matter of years, and those numbers, rose extremely fast.
yeah, it was just 4 years.
Yeah.
And that just seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the whole problem is misinformation and conspiracies.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's a lot of people out there who have, I don't know if they even trust their primary care physician, but I feel like you can just go to your doctor and ask some questions and they'll give you some answers, but
Exactly.
so you can just clear things up right there with the doctor, but
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people go, well, there's so much information and I'm not sure what to believe and I don't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
You talk to
Yeah.
your doctor.
Right.
Yeah. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're going to the doctor. Hopefully you trust him, with your life and your children's lives and, whatever medicine they're prescribing to you. But I don't know. That's strange.
And I find it so messed up that people talk about how it can be sometimes more dangerous to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
That is not the case.
Yeah.
That is not the case at all. In fact, if you look at it, even 100, maybe 200 years ago, if you had a kid, their chances of surviving until like adolescence wasn't really that great.
Yeah.
It was okay. But nowadays, if you have a kid, there's really no expectation that you're going to lose them to some weird disease.
Right.
I mean, there's a real expectation that they're going to be healthy and fine. And if there's any issues, you go to the doctor. And that is because of vaccines.
Yeah.
I mean, we wiped out polio.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this country, we did wipe out the measles, except because of misinformation, it's back. In fact, I was just looking at, there's a report from this year in a small community in Ohio. There was an outbreak of measles, 85 cases. Now, they were all among children, and nobody died, so that's good. But I believe it was it 35? No, 36 had to be hospitalized, and they were all among unvaccinated children, completely preventable.
Absolutely. I don't know. I don't know if there's ever going to be any kind of a end in sight for that. You know, I think that
I feel like it's part of human nature to question, but the part that infuriates me is not the questioning, it's the random believing just random stuff they seem to pick up.
Like I said before, I think I'll go back to this because I do definitely want to like understand some people's thinking, but and I know that everyone's different, so everyone's going to have a different situation. But it feels like people lead with that instead of like, you know, kind of, I don't know, trusting the science, I guess, or, you know, how far we've come, that things are safe, that things are made to be safe. You know, but people will look at like the alternatives or the what ifs. You know, what if you know, this vaccine has some type of a different reaction for my child? You know, then what? You know, because maybe someone that they know, a friend of a friend of a friend or something like that, their child got sick. So it's difficult to combat that because, once again, I mean, there is no 100% certainty, but it is made safely.
Yeah, and I think the worst part is like when people go, well, it's a personal choice for me. Well, then are you going to live in a bubble and not interact with everyone else?
Yeah.
Because that's how these things are spread.
Yeah. Listen, that movie Bubble Boy was pretty funny. So some people might want to do that.
It had Beetlejuice in it from the Howard Stern show.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. If you're interacting in the community, then it's not just a choice for you. It's a choice you're actually making for everyone around you.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about how some people think, well, then if some people say this and other people say this, which, by the way, I think I've made it very clear that there's only one of those groups that you should be believing. You know, I'll just do the sensible thing and split it halfway. Well, what did John Oliver say? He's like, that seems like the sensible thing, except for one side is science and the other side is pseudoscience. Yeah. Which basically means you're meeting halfway between something that means something and something that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So